Steve, you were mentioning asbestos, and I'm not sure, and I know you're aware of this, but I'm not sure how many people are familiar with an old book by a GRU defector. He wrote under the pen name Victor Suvorov. And
Suvorov.
Okay, yeah, right. Now, the name of the book, folks, is Spetsnaz, the Inside Story of Soviet Special Forces. Now, in Chapter 15, in fact, on page 196, if you want to get right to the heart of it, he was talking about Great Terror, and he describes Great Terror as a series of large and small terrorist operations for the purpose of which is, before actual military operations begin, is to weaken the enemy's morale, create an atmosphere of suspicion, fear, and uncertainty, and divert attention. And then this I found extremely important: to divert attention of the enemy's armies and police forces to a huge number of different targets. And isn't that what we're seeing right now? I mean, this is we're being diverted. Our armies are being diverted. Our police forces are being diverted. Our attention is being diverted. And with regard to Syria, Steve, and this is something I really have to say, Syria, and we can, and I think it's safe to say that I don't think we should look at Syria as really being the main show here. This Syria is the flash bang of the Magic Act. This is where the events are set in motion, and it will be a catalyst to set the stage for things that will happen next. And what happens next is going to be the critical things. I mean, we're talking about the implementation of a new world order, a new economic order. And I don't think people understand the enormity of this, Steve. I really don't.
Well, they don't, Doug. They just simply don't. And I know this is not condescending. Look, Jesus said it this way: which of the prophets have your fathers not killed, okay? Nobody wants to receive a real-time warning because it's the mind-controlled nature now to put it off until tomorrow, the next day, or the other. Let me just share for the first time in history what's going on, okay? You have the Russian Navy arriving at Pearl Harbor for what's called RIMPAC, the Russian Air Force participating in Red Flag for the first time ever, and all of these the Russians are learning the elite training drills of the U.S. Navy and Air Force. Can I ask you this? What nation who basically claims to be still how do I say this, a defender of freedom would allow that to happen unless they've totally been sold out? Every one of the defectors, all the Russians that I interviewed after the breakup of the Soviet Union, all said the same thing. And I'll just paraphrase it. You stupid, stupid Americans. You sell your country out for peanuts. When we sell it out, we at least know how to make enough money to retire on the Black Sea. Okay? So what you've got, Doug, is every single thing. Admiral Jeremy Borda was murdered. He was the chief of naval operations, okay? When that happened years ago, they claimed he committed suicide with a shotgun. Yeah, right. We got a postcard, and basically the guy said he was a hit ordered by the CSEA of CFR, okay? Well, you know, that was covered up. Now you've got Navy SEALs being murdered. You've got the greatest attempt at destroying humanity going on from the death house. And by the way, that's what I will, from now on, refer to the place the president occupies as the death house, okay? My fear is it will turn into the slaughterhouse. Because, again, if the American people understood what is planned for them, Doug, as a parent, I don't know any parent that would not go absolutely crazy if their kids were taken from them, only to find out it had been a plan by their elected officials. Can I make it clear? Those of you that are still caught up in the Republican-Democrat paradigm, Tea Party, whatever, you're missing the point. You cannot cure the spiritual sickness of this country with a political solution. You cannot do it. You cannot even any longer hope to take your country back. America is given over to divine judgment. God has weighed this country in the balance. Someone said, well, why should I listen to you? You're just negative. Get the hell out of the country. I love this country. And while you've been such a weenie dipstick ice cream cone for the past 20 years, hiding under your anonymous this or your anonymous that, we've been trying to warn and to equip the saints for the times ahead. It's just like this, Doug. I can come on your show, B can come on your show, others can come on your show and say, you know, hey, you got to do this with your IRAs, your 401ks, your KEOs. The government's planning on taking it. We can come on and tell you there's going to be a cyber attack on the banks, and then, invariably, we will get the inane emails. Well, what should I do? Now, I'm not making fun of people, but what I'm saying is this. Even when Gerald Celente was talking about everything going on, he believed that a certain brokerage firm, MF Global, was trustworthy. Gerald's a bright guy. I think he's one of the smartest men in the world, in my opinion. I think he's got the most foresight in the world. But you see, we all make mistakes when we trust the old paradigm, not realizing that if you don't touch it, you don't own it. You know, again, how are people who have been welfare recipients going to respond when they don't get their the electronic draft into their account or whatever? I mean, you know how they're going to respond. How are people who have just, how are people who's going to be responding who've just been waiting for this? This is why you always, listen, here's how I say it. This is as nice as I can get tonight. The wolves always follow the caribou.
What?
You know, and the rich, exactly. I don't care if you live in a gated community, you know, it doesn't do any good if you live in a gated community if the guy's coming in there has got a D5 cap, you know, with a Ma Deuce, a 50 caliber belt-fed machine gun, blasting everything. They blast first, go and pick up the pieces later. Or, you know, it doesn't do any good to have a Black Hawk or whatever helicopter or an Apache gunship firing from, 8 miles away because they've locked on their GPS coordinate, and you think, well, I don't see anybody coming down my driveway, and then boom, you're either with Jesus or you're in hell, you know? Yeah. And so, I mean, seriously, I don't know if anybody would look at I did something today. I don't even know why I did. Well, I know why I did it. I put up a really beautiful flower shot. But then
I love it, by the way.
I said, and then the final thing I said, remember, there are no flowers in hell. And everything about a flower, the fragrance, the color, the beauty, it resonates life. Everything that mankind is doing now on the planet, it's about death. It's about control. It's about violating, if they're not happy having their fingers in places that only doctors check, for medical issues, they're not happy until they're reading your DNA with an electron microscope. They're not happy until they're reading your brainwaves. This is the total, and I guess I'm going to use a word I've never used before, but this is the total integrated rape of not only the human genome, but the human being. This is the absolute mockery of God's commensurate creation being picked apart by the carrion of hell, and I'm really struggling to put it into such a formidable way that I can get people's attention. I'll tell you what, they may want to pick my bones, but I'd sure like to make sure they're hors d'oeuvres before that day comes.
Well said.